What's up guys, my name is Carl and welcome back to the channel. So the other week, well actually the other month, I picked up a cooler off of Amazon. It was a cheap Fubos or Golden Field, cheap, super cheap Chinese cooler. It was RGB apparently. It's not, it's just got a fan that lights up several different colors. The main reason I wanted to do this video is because I hated how that fan sounded. It kind of looked a bit stupid as well. It also sounded horrible. So should have put that on silent really. So basically what I did was I took a Bequiet Silent Wings 3 fan and I stuck it on there instead. That instantly improved the noise I was suffering with, which I really didn't like. And then I was also kind of wondering, what about the thermals? How much difference has it made? I'd imagine it's made a bit of difference. It's a much better fan. It can spin at a higher RPM. So then I was kind of wondering, does this $15 cooler with a $20 fan, does it compete with a $35 cooler? Like the Hyper 212 or the Hyper 212, whatever you want to call it. I did a bit of testing around. I was curious, does my cheap Amazon Chinese cooler compete with a $35 Coolermaster
It was at this point he knew he f***ed up.
very well-reviewed cooler? We'll have a quick look at what we've got on the table down below me, and then I'll be spending several hours testing everything and finding out what's going on, and I'll report back with my findings. Right, so here we have our 3 contenders, starting with the main one on the left. So that is the Fubos, or Golden Field it actually says on the top of it, CPU cooler, and that is the fan that comes with it. There it is there. I believe it's the Z8. Make of that what you will. We also have the Bequiet Silent Wings 3 fan. This is the 120mm high-speed one, PWM, really nice fan. Really nice kind of mounting mechanism that these fans have, which I really like. They don't require any screws, but especially these little push pin things. Really like them. So I'm basically going to be putting that fan on that cooler, and we're going to see how well that performs. Obviously, we're going to test it with the fan that comes with it first to see if it's even worth it. Is it even worth changing the fan to maybe a $20 fan? Here we have the cooler itself. Quite a nice looking cooler, I'll be honest. It's all black, but this is kind of like what we're comparing it to. This is the Hyper 212 RGB. Generally, well, the Hyper 212 RGB Black Edition, to give it its full title. It's mainly the Black Edition which I'm after. I really like that. The RGB is a bit of a bonus, so I think the RGB is about £5 more, which puts it closer to $40. But we've got a $20 fan, $15 cooler, closer to $35, and then we're going to can basically just mark it up against the non-RGB version for the sake of simplicity really. And the kind of main plan for today is to see, is it worth buying this a lot better made, a lot cleaner looking, a lot thicker heat pipes, and generally just kind of a lot better built, $35 cooler? Will it perform any better? Or is it worth just getting a cheap cooler, save some money, and then put an expensive fan on it later down the line? Or just keep the basic one. You never know, it might just be better off using that one there and just skipping all these altogether. Right, so the cooler is installed. We'll get that fan on, we'll test the temperatures and the noise on there, and then we'll test the Bequiet fan, and then once we've got those kind of numbers, we'll move over to the Hyper 212, all the mounting equipment set up over there. And yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what is kind of the best. The Fubos fan, I am assuming to be the worst performer. I'm hoping that the Bequiet is actually better. I know it'll be quieter, I can at least guarantee that much. The Hyper 212, at the end of the day, it's a really nice looking cooler anyway. It's super sleek, that really kind of nice brushed gunmetal look. Generally, you'd probably pay the extra just for that in your case anyway, as opposed to just that. So I'm going to spend several hours probably wasting my time to find out which one of these is better and which one is worth your time and money. Right guys, so I have done all of my testing. To be honest, not really surprised. The obvious winner is the Hyper 212, spoiler alert. It's better made. It's just made that way from the factory. It's a heavier, denser, better quality cooler all around. And it's also got a decent fan included that's pretty quiet. And I'll be honest, don't bother with the other one. Just buy the 212 if you're considering buying one or the other. But if you do have kind of like a cheap tower cooler already, and maybe you've already got an old Hyper 212, and you're kind of thinking, well, is there any way that I can kind of breathe a little bit more life into this thing? Can I just throw a decent fan on it and improve things? Possibly. So basically what I found out today, you'll see the graph on the screen anyway, is that around 50% RPM, so they both kind of sat around 1100-ish RPM. It's kind of hard to get them to do the exact same RPM for some reason. It's just the way fans are. But at 50% RPM, the Bequiet fan with the Fubos cooler was at 74 degrees and around 35.8 decibels. So you could barely hear it. And I'll be honest, full stress, 8700K, all cores overclocked, 74 degrees is pretty good if I'm honest. This does have liquid metal applied, so that is why it's so low. And compared to the Hyper 212, we had 70 degrees, but it was 36 decibels exactly. So both of them are barely above the noise floor of the kind of room I'm in. So if I'm honest, they're both absolutely fine for that. If we crank up the fan speed to around 75% RPM, which is around the kind of 16 to 1500 RPM kind of figure, we are hitting 71 degrees with the Bequiet fan and Fubos cooler at around 40.9 or 41 decibels more or less. And the Hyper 212 takes a massive win here with 68 degrees at 40.3 decibels. Moving on up to complete full speed, the Bequiet fan hit 69 degrees and 44.6 decibels, whereas the Coolermaster hit 67 degrees with 46.2 decibels. But this is kind of where you look at things in a different kind of angle. Don't just look at, say, what is the lowest temperature, therefore that is the best. It kind of works another way. So if you think the Bequiet fan at 100% fan speed, kicking out 44 decibels, it was audible. It was not a horrible sound. These Bequiet fans just aren't. But at 44.6 decibels, at 100% fan speed, we only hit 69 degrees. At 50% fan speed with the Hyper 212, we hit 70 degrees. So you're talking 1 degree difference there, which is absolutely nothing. And maybe on a different day would make 0 difference. That is an absolute win for the Coolermaster cooler. 50% RPM compared to 100% with the cheap Fubos cooler and the Bequiet fan. Knocks it out of the park, 36 decibels, you couldn't even hear it, and we're hitting the same temperatures as that Bequiet fan at 100%. Though I will add one thing in kind of favor of the Bequiet combo, is the fact that it's the quietest at idle. It's the kind of the less audible and the less noticeable. The sound just kind of blends into the background. I didn't really hear it at all. I actually had to make sure it was actually running when I first checked. And it's also the quietest when at 100% load, but that's kind of really a useless point because you can get the same temperatures with the Hyper 212 at just 50% RPM. Again, this is all different depending on what CPU you're using, what kind of environment your case is in. This is all done on an open air test bench. So that is kind of one factor as to why we'll see probably lower temperatures than what you'd expect in a case, especially ones which have poor airflow. That's where probably the Hyper 212 also takes a win. Because it's such a thicker, heavier and denser cooler, it has a lot more kind of mass to store the heat, and it can just generally dissipate it a little bit easier as opposed to the really thin kind of poorly made Fubos cooler. It's okay for what it is, I'll be honest. It's probably fine for low-end PC builds. It did fine with this. It got smashed out the park when you added that $20 fan on or compared it to the Hyper 212. But the kind of main reason for the test was to find out, can I make this thing any better with a better fan? The answer was yes, I could. And that probably is why you see such really good thermals on, say, some of these Noctua and Bequiet coolers, is because they have amazing fans on them. And you probably find out that if you maybe swap the fans over onto these different coolers, you probably get different or better results depending on what kind of heatsink or style or build that the company's gone with. Right guys, so to conclude, if you're looking at buying a new cooler, buy the Hyper 212 Black Edition in RGB or whatever. It is a solid cooler, performs really well, really quiet. I'll happily recommend that to anybody around that kind of $35 price point. If you do have maybe like a cheap older tower cooler and you have maybe a good fan lying around, maybe like a spare case fan that you never fitted or from another PC, and you're thinking, why don't I just stick that on there instead of this terrible fan that came with it, then yeah, that will give you some improved thermals and potentially improved noise as well. So I'd say they're both viable options depending on what you already have. If you have nothing, completely ignore this video and just go and buy a Hyper 212. Anyway guys, that has been me. I hope you like this kind of video, a little bit different, a little bit more kind of investigation involved here. If you did like this video guys, feel free to click that like button, really appreciate it. And if you haven't found my face offensive, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below and we can catch you guys in the next video. Also, don't forget to hit that bell icon so you get notifications as to when the next video goes live. Catch you in the next one guys. See you later. Bye.